Hey, this is Lee Welch with the Running PTs. Today we're talking about shin splints. In the medical field, we call this medial tibial stress syndrome. So classic shin splints are pain on the inside of the tibia. Some people will have pain in the front of the shin. We could call that shin splints. But classic shin splints are pain on the inside of the shin or medial tibial stress syndrome. This is a classic overuse injury if there ever was one. This oftentimes presents bilaterally in runners that are ramping up very quickly or have not been running at all and start a period of running again. As a runner, I'm going to tell you what you don't want to hear right now, which this injury requires rest. This injury can present itself in many different stages. Early onset shin splints is really the same injury as a stress fracture of the tibia. This is just a more prolonged injury that's been allowed to progress and not been given adequate treatment or rest. So the typical presentation of this injury, let's say you have a runner with pain on both shins, on the inside of their shin, and they've just started to get back into running and their shins are bothering them. That's early onset medial tibial stress syndrome. If that individual continues to run without treatment, that pain can become more bony in nature. Initially, there may just be soft tissue involvement. There may be some bone involvement, but it doesn't mean that there's a fracture. Those structures will recover and heal with appropriate rest time. Sometimes that's a day, 2 days to allow it to recover. If the recovery is not appropriate and you go run on injured tissue, that early onset shin splints or medial tibial stress syndrome is allowed to progress a little bit to a more advanced stage. If you continue to run through this injury, it can and typically will progress to bone, pure bone pain. You can start to develop a fracture or a reaction in the bone, which requires a shutdown period for full recovery. While this injury is almost a purely overuse injury, there are certainly some variables that can contribute to this from a run form standpoint, from a lack of strengthening or soft tissue mobility standpoint. I like to recommend foam rolling the calves and doing self-soft tissue in the posterior tib and inside of the shin area, being careful to stay off the bone. I like strengthening of the calves. I like strengthening of the muscles on the inside of the calf in particular. We do those on a slant board. While this injury is a classic overuse injury, there are certainly some variables that can contribute to this from a run form or foot type standpoint. Orthotics typically work really well in the early stages of this injury in order to eliminate some excessive pronation. We also like to strengthen the calves and the pronation muscles through heel raises on a slant board. A lot of single leg balance exercises like hip airplanes, hip band series are some exercises that can help as well. But when it comes down to it, this injury requires a period of rest in order for the tissue to adapt and recover. Sometimes that can be very quick. Sometimes that rest can be extensive if this injury has been allowed to progress to the later stages. If you've been dealing with shin splints, we can help you. TheRunningPTs.com or comment below.